I'm sitting here with Daryl Holt from EA. Why don't you go ahead and share who you are, what do you do, and a little bit of who you are.
Sure. Well, I'm Daryl Holt. I'm Vice President and GM of Electronic Arts, specifically around EA Sports, with responsibility in Orlando, Madrid, and Austin. So I've been with the company for 18 years now as of October 11th. Probably the fastest 18 years of my life, but it's been a wonderful ride working in that industry in video games. It's a creative industry, a technical industry, lots of creative people, and I love being in Orlando. I've been here ever since I took the job with EA 18 years ago in 2004.
What's the history behind EA in Orlando? Like, what is that? What was their involvement? Is this where they started? Did they move here? Like, what's that background for EA?
Yeah, it's a great question on EA's origins here. It started with three founders for Tiburon Entertainment, which was a studio that they created. They'd come over from California. They had family in Florida, some in Longwood specifically, so that's why they ended in Central Florida. And they started that studio up, and they picked the word Tiburon as the name, which is Spanish for shark, because they wanted something that represented, high on the food chain in the ocean of competition, specifically a hammerhead shark they use as a representation of the studio, because it's one of the few species of sharks that hunts in packs as well as hunts alone. So you can work in a team environment or work individually, and in the multiplanar ocular vision of the hammerhead shark and kind of see multiple things at once. So that's the reason and rationale they kind of started it. And they found the talent, was able to start ramping up and start building video games, and they started doing some work for Electronic Arts. So Tiburon was founded in 1994 here in Central Florida. Electronic Arts was founded in 1982, and that relationship grew to a point where Tiburon started to take on NCAA football, or college football was called back in the day, and working on Madden as a developer. And eventually they took over the Madden series, and EA kind of bought a stake in the company and then eventually acquired Tiburon in 1998. So that's how the marriage happened between an independent game studio and a behemoth game publisher like Electronic Arts. And we've only grown from there. Grew from the original three, now we're 1,000 strong in EA Orlando.
The new location, how's that going?
The new location, the Creative Village, is great. We finished construction, building a building through the pandemic, always interesting, but finished construction October of last year, and then we moved into it really, I'd say officially in March of this year. And now we're 100% open. People are starting to come back in the office, and a new way of working. But it's wonderful to be in the Creative Village, reshaping downtown, close to UCF's downtown campus and all the other innovators in downtown Orlando. So it's been kind of a shot in the arm from that perspective, which, not that you needed that coming back together after being away remotely, through a pandemic, but I think it is almost like a reset of sorts to say, what are we going to do next, and what's the next wave and phase of our future, and having this building as a new creative hub, I think serves as a kind of a physical representation of that.
Being in the gaming industry, you bring people into immersive experiences, right? So do you see yourself playing a part in navigating some of the innovation around remote work and how to make that more effective?
I think so. It's interesting that you put it that way, from immersive experiences that we build to immersive work that we do. It's a very creative process, a lot of collaboration, a lot of creative collisions that happen, not physical ones, but virtual ones, so to speak, from ideas. So building those and understanding those experiences that we build in a storytelling aspect of it, we kind of have to do that amongst ourselves a little bit too as we build games. We have to pull ideas out, we have to offer ideas up, make them better, plus them. So there's a creative process that I think feels very experiential. So when we went away for overnight to go build games, and I remember early on up front someone going, "Oh, we'll be back in 4 weeks." I'm like, "No, we're gonna finish Madden remotely this year. That's the way it's going to go," which is the way it went. We had already had the tech. The tech was easy enough to pack up and go overnight and work remote. It's a much harder thing, the personal people aspect of it. How do you make sure that you can still have that connection with a person creatively and plus an idea? And so we had to start telling stories even in our own building very differently, and to start working very differently, and even how you manage the work. You're not managing the work day or the worker, you're managing the work and what's coming out creatively. So that changes. So it becomes this evolution that I think we continue to look for ways to improve. And I think we are still looking for ways to improve, even as we return to work in a new future of work model.
You guys just recently got the 2022 Schultz Innovation Award, is that right?
Yep.
and that is for helping people, or for organizations who are contributing to the growth of an economy and also thinking forward to the future. Is that right?
Yeah, it's named after William C. Schwartz, who specialized and a pioneer in different things around photonics and such. But I think beyond the work and the innovation that kind of came from that work and that namesake, there's the spirit of that innovation, and I think the impact that you can have from tech, from innovation, from new ideas on a local economy and its competitiveness is really how that award is represented, which is why it's great for us to be recognized to do that with our movie, The Creative Village.
How do you stay ahead with innovation? Do you have a specific department that their whole job is to dream up big things and throw things against the wall, and someone above them says, okay, we like this? Like, how do you guys stay innovative in that regard?
I think if you try to put innovation in a box, it doesn't work, right? There will always be some instances in a company where you might have a new IP team or a advanced development team or something along those lines, which is great to move things forward, but innovation and ideas can come from anywhere. The company itself, back in 1982 when Electronic Arts was founded, their first ad that was the call to hire people was entitled, "Can a Computer Make You Cry?" And it was really around this idea of, as personal computing was taking off, could we use technology to make people feel, emote, in a new form of entertainment? So that was previously probably done by musicians and poets and filmmakers, and now we're going to try to do that with games. So when you take that aspect and then you combine what you're going to use technology for, you get down to a people level of understanding innovation. The last three words of that ad were, "We see farther." And it was really meant to imply that we're going to always be looking 3, 5, 10 years out of the industry, the entertainment, the technology, the relationships that people have. And when we look how games evolve, we're constantly thinking about, well, what would make that better? What would make a better play experience? What would bring people together more? And so those ideas can come from someone in our marketing and brand team, someone in our engineering team, a designer, someone playing around with technology going, I created this, what could we do with it? And I think it's those types of conversations that are really exciting in a game studio, because they could literally come from anywhere, any corner.
How long have you been with the company?
18 years, started in 2004, and it's been the fastest 18 years of my career.
That's awesome. That tells me that there's a good culture from the people perspective of the company. What is it about you that you feel connects you to that culture, to the brand of EA?
I think culture it's always an interesting word because it evolves around the people that are there and what's happening, the work that you do. I love being there because I know every day something amazing is happening in some corner of the studio. And now when you say corner of the studio, it's remote and you've got workers everywhere, but the corner of our imaginative studio that encircles us, something amazing is happening. And so if you kind of buy into that fact that this is a place where we're making dream experiences and virtual worlds for people, even within our own culture, we are suspending assumptions. We're trying to not box ourselves into what is and what has to be versus what could be. And I think it's that part of the culture that I tend to tie myself to. I consider myself a pioneer in different ways, looking for things different, looking to improve things. You reach a point where you're like, this is pretty good, but then you go, that doesn't mean it can't be better. And I think that's the totality of our studio and the people that are there. They're always looking for something a little bit better, a little bit more. How do we push the technology? How do we create a virtual human or a real world sporting event that someone can go to? And I think that's what's pretty cool about it.
What is it that drives you in all of that? What is it the thing that, what time you get up in the morning?
I get up usually around 5 a.m.
What would get you up at 4 a.m.? Like without an alarm, what would get you up?
It's always around creativity. I think I don't sleep a lot. I sleep about 4 to 5 hours a night. And it's because I'm constantly thinking about the things I can do. I don't want to waste time as a person. I want to maximize the time I have. I'm probably doing myself a disservice that I won't remember my own name when I'm 80, but I think living life and going through that creative process to do amazing work, I get up every morning and I pop out of bed and I'm ready to do something creative. That might be writing something, that might be a business deal, that might be something in our games, it might be something cultural, but it's something that reaches people. And because I think that's the beauty of creativity. It is an expression of complex ideas and feelings and different things from in a person, but it's also pulls people together in ways. And so thinking about people, thinking about culture, thinking about how you tie into that, that's what's so exciting about working at a company like EA, because there's always an opportunity to be creative. And that's what gets me up in the morning with a lot of energy. And I have a kind of an unwritten rule that if I get up 3 mornings in a row, my first thought is a negative thought about EA, well then I'm out. I've never had 3 days in a row. I've had 2 a couple times, but never 3.
Came close.
Came close, where you go, okay, what? And usually when that happens, it's, what am I going to change? I'm not going to just wait for the next day to come around and go, here it is, the 3rd day in a row. It's, what am I not doing right, or what could I do differently, or what's causing that situation, and then get creative about it.
Have you always been like that?
Always. Yeah.
What was your biggest influence around that?
That's a good question. I think it was just imagination, really. I grew up as a middle child. I had older brothers and sisters who were 5 and 6 years older, a younger sister that was 9 years younger. So I was in that middle space where I'm going to entertain myself. I'm going to imagine. I wanted to be an artist growing up, but I grew up in the Reagan 80s, so I didn't want to be a starving artist. Digital art hadn't really come around yet. It was starting with Mac Paint and some other things. But I also was very strong in math. I started programming in the 7th grade, wrote my first game in the 7th grade. And so there was this amalgamation of tech and creativity and art, but I never ever considered video games. And I've been playing video games since 1976 on an Atari 2600. Never ever thought about that as a career. And I actually went to school and got an accounting degree. And then went back to night school and studied computer animation. So you can imagine, it is not the linear path at all, but it's constantly thinking about things that you can do. That's why when I talk about technology, it's not so much the technology versus the application of it that is really interesting to me. And growing up, that's just who I was. It's like, let's think about this. Let's tell this story. Let's think about things differently. Let's flip it, turn it upside down, draw it a different way if I'm drawing something, and get to that creative core that starts to speak to your passion as a human being.
Accounting?
Accounting, yeah.
Accounting? Now, I get it from the math side. You said you're good at math, love math. You got that problem solver kind of mentality, which is really great for management. But then you got accounting, which, okay, math to accounting, but you have this creative side that's like a complete conflict with that. Did you notice that like right away when you were in school?
I noticed it because it was one of those things where it's not like my father woke up and said, hey, son, get a trade, get a job that can put food on the table. But I think I was also wired that way to be very practical and understand that while I've got this creative side that I want to pioneer and go crazy on, I have a practicality that says, what am I going to do today with that? And so I think that's what led to, well, I'm good at math. And I took my first accounting class in the 10th grade, loved it. There's a certain order to it. And so I went down that path while I was also getting a minor in management information systems so that I could stay plugged into the tech. But when it came time to graduate, it's like, am I going to be an accountant? And the answer was clearly no. I could have, but I leaned into the computer information system side and went into consulting. And so that aspect married the understanding of business, which came from the accounting side, with the creative side, with the technical side, and it was the best job ever right out of college. Thinking on your feet, a new problem every day, different levels of industry, and it taught me to go, okay, what's the problem today, and how can I help? And how can I convince you that I can help? Because as a consultant, and a new consultant, you have to do that too. So I think it was probably serendipitous that I ended up at Electronic Arts, where you combine storytelling and games and technology and art and big business into a job that I've thoroughly loved for 18 years.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Florida. I was born in Coral Gables, just outside of Miami. Spent most of my childhood on the Gulf side of Florida, the west coast, southwest Florida. And then ended up going to Stetson University in DeLand to get my accounting degree in management information systems minor. And then moved to Tampa. Worked there in consulting and in healthcare and a bunch of different things along that way before I came up to Orlando. So I've always been in and around the state of Florida. I love Florida. I got a lot of travel out of my system consulting early in that job. You're always off at some project somewhere. Every weekend you're on a plane. But I've always come back to Florida. I love it.
So you're in Orlando. How long you been here?
18 years now.
So with EA. EA brought you to Orlando.
Correct.
What is it about Orlando that I would love to know, what have you seen from those 18 years when you came here to where it is now? What's the biggest difference that you see?
I think Orlando is coming into its own over those 18 years. We've always had certain things here that have been kind of the foundational elements of Orlando. And of course, you've got Disney and Universal and things that people normally think of, the attraction, the visitation, and tourism. But I've always been here, and as I had clients here and as I worked with different companies, you realize the innovation that was happening here and the talent that was here. And so when I came here, you could say there were aspects of it that maybe were in some awkward adolescence, right, that hadn't quite found their footing. But while I've been here, you start to see that collaborative spirit come together. It's an ecosystem where people want to help each other, where you want to take an idea and plus it, follow some trail of breadcrumbs to something else. And whether that be industry partners, university partners, government or civic leaders, we're all rowing in the same direction. I think that's what I've seen is that alignment of those boats rowing in the same direction, everyone understanding what we kind of already knew but couldn't articulate. And now it's all coming together in ways that people can combine what we do with what we love, with the quality of life, Florida and weather and everything here, the amenities, that it makes it a complete experience. It's where I say, living is brought to life.
What kind of advice would you give someone who comes here, right? Orlando can be tough.
Yep.
It's got lots of things to do, entertainment. I think there's been a lot of progress, especially in the tech space, for tearing down the silos, people working together and communicating together. In many ways, if there's not a trail in front of you, you're going to have to blaze it, which for the entrepreneurial mindset, that's amazing. What kind of advice would you give someone who's coming into it, right? There's a lot of tech going on here, like what we see today even,
Yep.
How to get connected, how to win in the Orlando environment. Do you have any thoughts on like what approach they should take?
It's a great question. I think that there's probably lots of approaches and lots of different ideas that people would have. I would start at the base level of dream big. This is a place that was built by dreamers. Walt Disney coming here and turning swampland into what is today Walt Disney World started with a dream. And I think if you think about that, and even his philosophy of, hey, we don't look back here very often, we keep moving forward and thinking about new ideas and being curious, that's where it starts. You want to dream big, you want to be curious and be a storyteller. Tell your story and understand that. If you've got that base level going in and that mindset, now you start making the connections. I think this is a very open community, especially in the tech community, of making those connections, inviting people in, introducing someone to someone else. It doesn't matter whether you're a big company or a small company, we're all people. And I think in Orlando, it tends to fall back on that from a relationship perspective. So you build those relationships, you take advantage of the community and the culture that's here, and then it's about showing up and doing it. And I think that's really what it comes down to. You can have all the best intentions in the world, but eventually you got to want to do it and want to make it happen. And I think those are the successful entrepreneurs in this ecosystem.
Is there anything you hope to see in the next 5 to 10 years in Orlando?
Anything I hope to see? I hope to see the recognition, the investment, all the things that we've been seeds planting, sprouting in terms of coming fully realized as a technical hub and as the meta center. I think when we look at that and you think about where that could go, I'd love to see us be that place where people go, hey, I don't understand this metaverse thing. Go to Orlando, you'll understand it. I don't know what I want to learn, what I want to be as a college student, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, now coming out in the world. Like, go to Orlando. That's where you want to build the skills that the future is basically going to be built upon. I want to see that. I don't want to be the next Austin, the next Silicon Valley. I want this to be the first Orlando and something so unique that people go, that's where it started and that's where we need to go.
How did you come across Synapse? I mean, we all come across Synapse because I feel like they have really good movement going around the state of Florida. But what is your connection to it?
Synapse, for me, it comes through those relationships that we've been talking about. I work with the Orlando Economic Partnership. I'm on their board. Obviously, we're a big tech company, and we work with a lot of creative things, the Orlando Tech Council. I try to make sure that we are community players in our community in which we live, work, and play. Our employees want that. And so there are things that might pop up as community events that we will sponsor and I'll hear from, and people ask, is this something that Electronic Arts can get involved in? And when all those things align and they're perfect from a standpoint of we believe in the community aspect of it, it's going to be good for people, it's going to be good for the area, economic development, tech, and it plays right in our own wheelhouse of who we are as Electronic Arts, then it's like check, 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 check. We should be there too. That type of thing.
That's awesome. All right, I'm just going to ask the question that I'm told to ask. Is I told him, I don't like being told what to do. No. Why is Synapse so vital to Florida's innovation community?
Why is Synapse so vital for it? Well, I think that it brings like-minded people together. It fosters communication. It brings an eye to Orlando and the tech hub and what we're doing. But I think there could be all kinds of events that could do that. So I think if Synapse is going to be exactly what you're saying it is, or questioning of why it's important to that community, it's got to be consistent. It's got to have the wow factor. It's got to have the audacity to give itself permission to be something that it wants to be. Not a carbon copy of anything, just be itself. And I think that's what it's doing. And I like Synapse. I like what it's bringing together. There's a mix of interesting discussions. There's exhibits around us. There's conversations that I already hear happening. I left my tech panel where someone's asking me questions about how we can get involved and how we can collaborate. And that's the biggest thing that I think Synapse can add to the success of the Orlando area. It fosters the collaboration, makes the connections, and makes people comfortable to just be who we are.
One last question.
Yeah.
How do you define the Orlando life?
How do I define the Orlando life? Well, I've often said it's, where living is brought to life. You can have a full day in Orlando. I can get up and go to the beach, or I can get up and go to work. I can be a foodie. I can catch a major sporting event. I can catch the sunset at the beach if I didn't catch the sunrise. And I can do that all in one day. I can start a company, work at a company for 18 years plus, have a full career, full life with a family, buy a home. All that stuff is right here in Orlando. There's nothing that says you can't live life to the fullest with all the amenities, all the actions, all the options. And I think that's what keeps me here. I miss the water sometimes because it's, a little bit of a drive. I don't drive by it every day, but it's a pretty short drive to the beach. But outside of that, I've lived a very fulfilling life here in Orlando that I think is going to keep me here.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.